Tastemakers was funded in part by...
What does a craftsperson look like? Is it this? Or this? Or is it this? Is it possible a craftsperson might also look like this? Edward Jones salutes the makers who share their expertise and take pride in their craft.
And by Fleischmann's Yeast. And A.B. Murray.
The fermented food frenzy is showing no signs of slowing down. Kombucha, yogurt, kimchi, all of these ancient fermented foods are making a huge comeback. And in this episode of Tastemakers, you're going to meet the team behind Edible Alchemy here in sunny San Diego, where farmers market culture and fermented foods meet. I'm Kat Neville, and I've been telling the story of local food for about 20 years. In that time, I've seen the American food movement explode in tiny towns and big cities from coast to coast. In Tastemakers, I explore the maker movement and take you along for the journey to meet the makers who define the flavor of American cuisine. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Today, when we're starting to realize the positive and negative effects that food can have on our health, that quote seems more relevant than ever. And many people are turning to fermentation. This ancient preservation technique seems to have some amazing side benefits. And so today, we are here in San Diego to meet the team behind Edible Alchemy.
Fermentation really inspires me. The little microorganisms in the food when we ferment them, they're kind of like my babies, and I feel very protective of them, and I feel like I want to send them out into the world and inoculate people's guts with them. I find it to be spiritual because I find it to be like the unseen world that you don't have to believe in. There's no faith required, but it brings a benefit. They taste delicious, and they make you feel awesome. They are living things, and they're kind of magical. Fermentation is a process of controlling rot. You're taking something, and it's going to decompose, right? Everything's going to decompose, and entropy happens. But you can guide entropy to a place that's delicious and good. And so fermentation, whether it's beer or cheese or yogurt or sauerkraut, kombucha, it's taking something in this sort of more fresh state and letting it go to something that's moving toward the earth. It's maybe appearing dead, but it's teeming with other life stuffs, these microorganisms. That process of dying actually is delicious. That maybe came out a little bit wrong, but...
I think the whole process behind fermentation is what turns me on. It's such an interesting, magical process. We don't actually see the microbes because it's so tiny, but such a huge, dramatic change happens between a raw piece of cabbage and when you turn it into sauerkraut. You're just adding salt, you're mushing it up, you're letting it sit, and then suddenly it has like umami, funky, weird flavor. It's kind of incredible how the change happens. For instance, with sauerkraut, you don't need to start anything. You just need to build a home for the microbes because they're already there. They're in your environment. They're on the cabbage. They're floating in the air. They'll settle and they'll grow as long as there's enough salt in there for them to be able to proliferate. And they do their own thing. You just have to be able to tend to their needs.
All those great friendly bacteria, they preserve the food, and that's why our ancestors did it, to preserve the harvest. It's amazing how that ancient technology also really was the key to our survival as well. And like it brought so much more nutrition to a meal. It brings that sour. You got to have all the flavors on the tongue, you know? You got to have the bitter and the sour as well as the sweet. So it brings that sour. At home, when I was starting fermenting, I had read a book called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. and that really inspired me. That's when I started fermenting kombucha and sauerkraut, and it was just like home ferments. We visited Berkeley, and I was super inspired by our friends at the Cultured Pickle Shop. I was like, you guys are the most amazing thing, and oh my God, you're geniuses. And then I got fired from my job. So I was doing that fermentation at home, and I was like, well, let's just do that. Let's just do what they're doing. So, I mean, because they look like they're having fun, so I was like, I want to have fun too. I don't want a dumb job anymore. I was mad when I got fired, and then as soon as I walked out the door, I was like, yeah, I can do what I want now. So we cashed in our small, tiny retirement that we weren't going to be able to retire on, and funded this thing. And I haven't heard the last of it from my wife since. Being connected to the San Diego farm scene has been really valuable for me because I value farmers, and to be able to show my value to them by having them be my vendors and giving them money for their great work really makes me feel great. And so I'm glad that our business can support these other farms around San Diego. JR Organics provides a lot of the herbs for our kombuchas and sometimes vegetables for our sauerkrauts and other vegetable ferments.
I think a lot of people are now more conscious about what's really in their food, as far as fertilizers, as far as pesticides, and the techniques that are grown. I think another big thing is that by balancing your soil, you can create really good food without having to use any chemicals or pesticides on it. And once the plant is started, we use seaweed to kind of keep the plants going. Seaweed will give them a whole bunch of different minerals also, and it neutralizes a lot of the salts and stuff in the soil to keep the plants growing. The nice thing about Southern California is that you can grow all year round. One season ends, the other one pops right back in. And just know your right timing for everything. With a few years of experience of doing it 40 years, I've caught on.
Creating that relationship, getting to know who's growing your food is the best thing. First of all, people are interested because they want to know who's growing the food and how it's grown. Personally, I want better food for everybody. Not only myself, but for my family. This is family owned and operated, and my grandpa still exists. He's still here on the farm. He works almost every day here on the farm, and there's just a lot of passion here. There's a lot of passion and a lot of family. So that's what gets me up every day.
Now we're here at Valley Center Growers, where Jose and Sandy are growing avocado and citrus on almost 100 acres. They've been supplying Edible Alchemy for over 5 years.
I've been in business for about 20 years, growing citrus and avocados. The farming is something that I grew up with in Mexico, and I love what I do.
So we just left Jose's grapefruit grove. That the aroma of those blossoms is unbelievable. And now we're among the avocado trees, which are just laden with fruit. It's incredible to see.
Yes, that's why I love what I do. Just to see in these avocados, you know, this is a perfect, beautiful fruit.
It is perfect and beautiful. And so you have 100 acres here
Yes.
on the farm. How much of it is citrus and how much of it is the avocado?
Let's say avocados, about 30, 40 acres. The rest of it is citrus.
So Jose and Sandy, his wife, they grow a range of citrus, including grapefruit, tangelos, kumquats, oranges, all these wonderful things. And you've been working with the folks at Edible Alchemy for about 5 years, and you kind of rely on each other because you need those local customers to sustain your business, and without that great local produce, whatever he's making is going to fall flat. It's not going to have that authenticity that people are looking for.
Yes, it helps me out a lot, keep my business growing. We've been working for 5 years, and it just works both ways.
Having farmers like that always consistently provide such fantastic produce, it makes my job really easy. Like, all I have to do is throw it in there, and it's perfect.
So I'm standing here in the space that Edible Alchemy uses. It's part of a communal kitchen, and Alan obviously just got back from Jose and Sandy's farm with a box full of produce, and we've got some rosemary. What are you gonna make?
We're gonna make rosemary grapefruit kombucha.
That sounds awesome.
Yes. So we're gonna cut up the grapefruit and then juice it.
So you mentioned that you're going to be making this particular batch with jasmine tea.
Yes.
And anyone who's had kombucha knows that it's kind of this bright, almost a little bit fizzy, but tart flavor to it. So how prevalent is the flavor of the base tea?
I love it when the actual flavor of the tea comes through, so that you can really taste the kind of tea that's in there. But there's all kinds of stuff going on flavor-wise. There's the sour from the kombucha, the sweet or sour from the citrus, plus whatever other herbs and stuff. And that's what I love about kombucha. The range is very wide, and you can really play around with different kind of flavor profiles. So when you make kombucha, you'll have tea and you'll have sugar. And then you have a little bit of the leftover mother or SCOBY or whatever you want to call it, but the culture from the last batch. It's basically cellulose byproduct of the fermentation process. Throw that into this tea and sugar. Now they have new food. So this sweet tea is providing this colony of bacteria and yeast food. So they're like, yay, and they go to eat, and they eat away at it for over 3 or 4 weeks. And now it's nice and sour, but not too vinegary.
SCOBY. Mm-hmm. This is a symbiotic
community
yes.
of bacterias and yeast.
And so SCOBY looks really weird, but don't worry, it's not going to hurt you.
Should we pick some up?
Yes, we should pick some up.
We got a beautiful SCOBY right here.
It's thick like leather.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. In fact, you can make leather out of it.
Really?
Yeah. They make kombucha hats and leather goods.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess you just dry it out?
Yeah. It dries out really like thick and strong. You can make dog treats with it. And we put this in our soap too.
Oh, cool.
Our kombucha soap.
So where does that come from? This obviously has been growing for a long time. How does it start? Do you have like a mother? Is it kind of like using sourdough bread where you have a starter?
A cup of that is all you really need to add to some sweet tea.
So many people are trying to incorporate fermented foods, probiotics. We're starting to really understand the value of the microbiome that's in our bodies.
Yep. The probiotics sort of act as a little conveyor belt, taking little bits of nutrition from the intestines, and they just bring the nutrition through to your body. So when you don't have that, then you can be eating the best diet in the world, then you're not going to assimilate as much of that nutrition. Now we've got some rosemary from the garden. We're trying to infuse it, but keep it kind of raw. We're gonna take our juicy kombucha, pop that in there with a little bit of that. Let's have some taste.
Oh, wow, that's good.
Yeah?
Yeah. What an amazing combination with that fresh grapefruit and that like zing from the rosemary. I mean, this is the kind of thing that it just makes you feel good when you're drinking it from the inside out.
That's right.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Well, I'm gonna sit here and continue drinking this kombucha.
Okay, great. Cheers.
So we do anywhere from 9 to 10 different varieties of sauerkraut, or we do a kimchi, and then we do a cultured serrano chili paste. And then we do seasonal kombucha. It's whatever is on our whim, whatever we see at the market, whatever we want to do. We do medicinal mushroom tinctures, 5 different single medicinal mushrooms right now. We do a 14 mushroom blend as well. They include all those 5 plus 9 other mushrooms.
We got excited about the nutritional and health properties of mushrooms. We're talking about like maitake, shiitake, lion's mane mushroom, cordyceps, chaga. We do a whole thing where we ferment the mushrooms first, and then we do a hot water extraction and an alcohol extraction. So it's a triple extracted mushroom product. They're incredible. And they're incredible for your human systems. That's kind of the motive behind the mushroom tincture.
We do coconut yogurt. It's non-dairy, it's made from coconut milk. It's thick as regular yogurt, and it tastes mostly like regular yogurt with like a coconut hint.
So now I'm standing here with Rory, and we're gonna talk about your vegan coconut yogurt. So let's take a look at the coconut milk by itself.
Yes, it's characterized as a coconut cream. It's a high percentage coconut cream product that we dilute down to a normal, about 18% fat. That's your normal can of coconut milk you would get in the store. So we start off with this, and then we add a couple of different other ingredients to really create the texture of the yogurt that we're looking for.
Can I give it a taste?
Oh yeah, please, enjoy.
That's good.
Thank you.
And it does have a bit of a coconut flavor to it, but that beautiful sourness and the really thick, kind of luxurious mouthfeel that you have to it, it's a really nice mimic of yogurt. That's good, Rory.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad you like it.
Yum. There are about 6,500 farms in the San Diego region and almost 50 farmers markets. So while there are more and more people getting into the local food industry, people like Kat Fields White are stepping in to help ensure their success.
Anybody can shop at the farmer's market. Not everybody might be buying the single origin chocolate that's down on that aisle, but everybody can come out and afford fruits and vegetables. They can get bread from a baker that they know that's not full of preservatives. They can get jam from somebody who's getting food directly from the farmer. They can buy coconut yogurt if they're dairy sensitive from somebody like Edible Alchemy. Farmers and the food makers have a synchronistic relationship. So the more the food makers buy from local farmers, the fresher they know the ingredients are. A lot of times the better deal they can get, actually, when they're buying direct from the farmer. If we can keep getting money directly to the farmers and the food makers, they can keep doing what they do. If we don't, at some point, folks are going to stop farming and we're all going to be eating little green pills. This is a tough life. Food service businesses aren't easy. You've got to really dance around how to avoid waste but still maintain enough inventory. Costing is made up of nickels and dimes that add up to make a difference as to whether or not you're going to make a profit and be able to stay in business. So it's hard, but it's really gratifying. There's nothing better than taking your product to a market and seeing some kid pick it up and taste it for the first time and break out into a smile. That's a gratifying thing. Feeding people is a big deal.
Tons of makers use places exactly like this to get their start. We are at the Ocean Beach Farmers Market here in San Diego, California, and we're going to check in with Jess to see how Edible Alchemy uses its booth to build its brand.
The majority of our sales right now are coming from our farmers markets. Over the last 7 years, I have actually had an opportunity to watch the farmers markets transform and grow and develop in a unique way. I have seen the customers themselves go from saying, "Combo what? Kombucha? What's that?" to all of a sudden people are coming up to me and saying, oh, what kind of kombucha do you have? Let me try this one. And it's really, really interesting to see those shifts, not only with the opportunities for the vendors and their growing reputation and attendance at farmers markets, creating a platform for new businesses to come and sell, but also for the customers to be able to find these unique items. We actually meet a lot of our wholesale accounts at the farmers market as well. That's another opportunity that farmers markets give you, and that I think has been a huge part of the success that we have experienced. The opportunity to meet not only local suppliers, but then also share your goods and wares with local store owners.
I don't feel very good about the food system, and that's partly why I wanted to do a business that was sort of against that flow. There's huge multinational corporations and agribusinesses that control and have a sort of a bottleneck on production and distribution of foods, and it's hard to be a small scale trying to create organic and righteous foods. It's a challenge, but if we offer the model, then we can maybe inspire others to change, because every bite you take is the choice that you're making, and it's the vote you're making. We try to give someone an opportunity to make a different choice, and that's the best we can do. The new enlightenment is authenticity. People want authentic food. They want to see businesses that are doing authentic, good work, and so they want to support that, and they want that in their life. We're trying to be authentic in our expression and what we do with our food, and then I think people read that and they go, that's something I want to be more of who I am, and what can I do to bring myself to the fore in the real way. And I feel like that our food helps in that process, and people see that in us as well.
We've spent this entire episode focused on fermentation, so it's about time you learn how to do it yourself at home. You're gonna be surprised how easy it is. It just takes a jar, salt, a little shredded cabbage, and some time. So let's go in and learn from the folks at Edible Alchemy.
Okay, welcome everybody. Hi. Hi. My name's Alan Conrad.
I'm Rory.
This is Rory. Here's Jess. You all know Jess, right? Yeah. And we are Edible Alchemy, and we're here to show you the joys of making sauerkraut.
It's a great community project. It's really fun to do. It gets messy, and you're able to see this creation that starts off with just salted cabbage and vegetables, and then suddenly changes after a couple weeks into this really funky, interesting flavor profile.
There's lots of sugar, actually, in these vegetables. What you're doing when you're adding the salt to the sugar of the vegetable is you're converting those sugars into lactic acid. The lactic acid starts being developed, and then all over these leaves, all the way down through the middle, there's lactobacillus all throughout there. So what we're trying to do is help the already existing lactobacillus procreate. And the way that happens is by creating more lactic acid for them to go, yes, this is my environment, this is what I want to be in, so I'm going to create more myself. So the way it works is we have a bunch of different stuff for you to choose what's going to go in your jar. It's all going to have salt. The rule of thumb is about a tablespoon per head. We use Himalayan pink sea salt, high in minerals. You can also use kosher salt. That's a really good salt to use. Any kind of sea salt would be really fine. The thing to watch out for is iodized salt. So you do not want to use iodized salt.
Table salt.
Why? That's right, iodine kills bacteria. So we don't want to kill the bacteria that we're trying to grow. So don't use iodized salt.
The basic process, you shred all your vegetables, cut them up, add them to a bowl, weigh everything out, and then you're gonna add the appropriate amount of salt to that. So the salt is gonna draw out the water, as well as the mechanical action of bruising your sauerkraut. You're gonna wanna continue to do this until your sauerkraut becomes like glistening, juicy almost. And at that point, we're gonna start packing it into the jars. You're gonna wanna store this on your counter out of the sun in a area where the temperature does not fluctuate a whole lot, because the bacteria They're just like us. They don't like to go from hot to cold to hot to cold. And then a tea towel works great over the top because during the first week, it's going to produce a lot of bubbling, and you're just capturing all that gas.
After the first week, if it's better for you to put it back in your fridge and let it finish fermenting, that's fine. The first week, though, in room temperature is best. But I like letting it ferment for at least 3 weeks.
Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. There's more information on the makers featured in this series, along with recipes and extra videos at wearetastemakers.com.
tasteMAKERS was funded in part by...
What does a craftsperson look like? Is it this? Or this? Or is it this? Is it possible a craftsperson might also look like this? Edward Jones salutes the makers who share their expertise and take pride in their craft.
And by Fleischmann's Yeast and A.B. Murray.